Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, Michigan is 6-0, just as you and I predicted before the season started. They're going to just roll, just keep winning every week. Jim Harbaugh, very secure job footing, just as I think we all thought over the summer. Please don't go back and check my work on that.
Well, no, I think we both very matter of factly predicted 6 wins this season for Michigan at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was that over the course of the first 6 games, the first 12 games? I don't remember. But I thought we felt very confident that Michigan would be a 6-win team in some form or fashion. Here they are. So we were right. Although I think maybe somebody may have said maybe 5 wins. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I don't think I don't know if I said 5 wins, but yeah, 6 to 8 seems like that was pretty much where the projection. And good news, we could still be correct on that. That is a possibility.
So this past weekend, and welcome to our Michigan Monday edition of the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. Michigan went to Nebraska this weekend, came away with a 32-29 win in Lincoln, a game that they controlled for, I don't know, like 2/3 of the game, and then they were up 19-7 in the third quarter. Nebraska scores 15 points and takes a 22-19 lead, and all heck kind of breaks loose, and Nebraska regains momentum, and yet Michigan was able to stop that momentum, get it back. They traded some points, ends up going 32-29 in Michigan's favor. Michigan kicks a couple of field goals in the final few minutes to get the win, first to tie, then to get the win. And it was the biggest test for Michigan this year, not only in terms of the opponent, the venue, but also this was the first time they'd actually trailed all season long. And not only did they trail, but they trailed after losing momentum. It's one thing to be like, it's 3-0 in the first quarter. Not that it was, but the way they trailed was pretty significant because they lost all momentum. And they responded, I believe, by going and scoring a touchdown on a 75-yard drive. So this was their biggest test. They found a way to pass it. I think Nebraska slipped them some of the answers, however.
Yeah, it was impressive to me that they came back and won the game, because it did feel like it was slipping away for a while, where, you remember the old NCAA video game where you'd have the momentum meter in the upper corner of the screen, and you'd throw a pick six, and then the momentum meter is all the way on the other team's side, and the controller's vibrating in your hands, and like that was where Michigan was in the third quarter of that game. And I was Cade McNamara, like you could see, like, it was 1914. He throws just a bad pick, like a real bad pick, and it was like, and then they cut to the shot of Jim Harbaugh on the sidelines, and he's giving you that Jim Harbaugh deer in headlights look. And it was like, oh boy, here we go. And then they came back and won. It was remarkable. And, they had some help from Nebraska in winning the game, but that's, you have to accept the help. Like, teams can turn the ball over and commit bad penalties. And sometimes you're going to get a break on a penalty that is or isn't called, but you got to capitalize on it. And I mean, they made plays when they had to make plays. I mean, Hassan Haskins had a huge run late. Blake Corum had a big run late. Brad Hawkins with that strip, and the strip of Adrian Martinez. That was a monster play. Like, they had guys who stepped up. That was a big environment. That's, I think we looked at that as, you're not going to necessarily proclaim them like ready for the college football playoff if they win this game. But that's a big test that they passed, because, when we were going through the schedule in the previous, before the start of the season, it was like, you looked at Washington as like, oh, this could be a loss. And Washington is hot garbage this year. So that means nothing to me now. At Wisconsin, you had just written up as a loss. And it's like, well, it turns out Wisconsin is actually also hot garbage this year. This is the first time they're playing a team that's like, okay, this is a team that we have seen be good. We have seen, have a reasonable offense, have a good defense. Like, this is going to be a legitimate challenge, a team that, on the road, tough environment at night, and they passed it. They didn't pass it by much, but they passed it.
They did, and they responded well. I'm looking at the numbers here. They had 204 yards rushing in this game. they were held in check for the first 3 quarters. The fourth quarter, they ran the ball 15 times for 95 yards. They closed this thing out. They took control of the line of scrimmage, both sides, and just put a stop to everything. I was also impressed with Cade McNamara. This is the most they've ever relied on him. Yes, he threw his first career interception, but that's going to happen. He was 22 of 38 for 255 yards, only sacked once. They're still doing the JJ McCarthy thing where they'll bring him in to run the ball a little bit and whatever. But McNamara spread the ball around. I'm just looking at the box score. 14 targets for Dalen Baldwin. Only completed 6 of those. They still need to work on some of that stuff. And McNamara certainly wasn't great, but they didn't hide from him like Iowa hides from Spencer Petras, like other teams in the Big Ten will hide from their quarterbacks. Like Penn State was trying to hide from their entire offense in the second half because they had none. But Michigan was leaning into what they have. And that to me is a sign of growth, a sign of confidence. And just, they've been shut down on the ground the last 2 games. Things weren't going great. They were struggling in the first 3 quarters in this one. They kept going, kept at it. Only averaged 4.9 yards per carry. But in that fourth quarter, they just took control. They wore on Nebraska. And the way they just stopped everything in terms of the momentum and just stuck to what they were doing probably gives Jim Harbaugh more confidence that that he's doing exactly right than anything that we've seen at Michigan since. I don't know that he's had any more confidence than what he does right now here with the Wolverines.
Well, and what's interesting to me is, we talked on yesterday's show about the fact that Michigan State feels like they kind of have the recipe now, and they have the running game, and they can throw the ball a little bit, but they have the running game. They can sort of lean on the defense a little bit, and that's how they want to win games, and it's working. This is very clearly how Michigan wants to win games. They want to just smash mouth, man ball you, and the quarterback is going to do some stuff, and he's fine. Like, they don't need him to be outstanding. His EPA per play, you want to guess, Tony, what Cade McNamara's EPA per play was on Saturday?
Was it like 0.7?
Mr. Blutarski, 0.0, which is not a 0. This is not a you have got an F. This is not a grade point average. EPA per play is like expected points added per play. Like, did you make your team more likely to score or less likely to score every time you drop back to pass? And it was just like, he was fine. He was exactly average. And as long as the defense continues to stand up, and as long as they can run the ball in crucial situations, that might be enough to get them through most of the schedule this year. And, you mentioned the Dalen Baldwin 6 catches on 14 targets, Cornelius Johnson 4 catches on 8 targets. It's like they're using that as like they will just heave one downfield every once in a while just to make sure you're still paying attention. And Mike Sanderstill had holy pants. Did he have a great catch down the middle at one point? But they are using those big plays. Just hit the big play in the pass every once in a while. But Luke Schoonmaker had a huge catch, one of their tight ends. Eric All, one of their other tight ends, had a huge, had some big catches. It looks like Michigan football. It's a lot of run the ball. It's a lot of use the tight ends, kind of possession passing. And then every once in a while you take a shot, but you're not trying to live and die with taking those shots. Then, this is very much Jim Harbaugh's wheelhouse. Like, the speed and space thing never felt like something he was going to completely let go and let Josh Gaddis really run, like a real modern spread kind of thing. This feels like Jim Harbaugh's version of modern football. And, so far it's working.
Not so much speed and space, more fist and face. I think with that Mike Sanderstill catch was tremendous. And one of the things that shocked me most about it is that's not really his game. He's more of the short stuff. He's the not gadget guy, but you get him out in space and you let him go. And we've seen some of that from, I think he was playing for Roman Wilson at that point. Roman Wilson, also not necessarily the guy that goes up and gets it, but he did it 2 weeks ago. You see Mike Sanderstill catching a deep ball on this one. So it's not just the outside guys that they're able to rely on down the field now. So maybe that opens up the passing game even more. And we've said it before, that it's okay to throw some of those 50-50 balls. You've got to back up the defense, and that will help open up the running game. And I think we saw that in this one as well. And they're still, like AJ Henning, I think is a really, really good player. They don't involve him enough, I don't think, on offense. And there's still some things that they can do, but they're still pretty conservative. Although they did have 82 plays in this game, and that's a lot for Michigan in a game. I wonder how many times they've done that in the Jim Harbaugh era. Settling for a lot of field goals. They kicked 4 field goals in this one. It was enough. It almost wasn't. But I wonder how much of there is. And I know coaches, I assume, can't rely on, what the other team will eventually screw up. They always do. And then we go back to the very similar to the Kirk Ferentz Penn State theory of, don't worry, they'll give us the ball back. I wonder how much of that is in play here, where field goals are okay at times, because there's only Nebraska still owes us. At some point, Nebraska owes us, and they'll pay up, and we can just wait for it, or not necessarily even wait for it, just make it happen.
Yeah, and they were minus 1 yard per play. Nebraska was 6.93, Michigan was 5.91 yards per play. That is not where you want to live. You do not want to be giving up an extra yard per play to the opponent. That's not something that's really totally sustainable. But they were +2 in turnovers. Like that makes a difference. I still want to see this Michigan team play a team that has an explosive offense, because this is just, they have, Washington their offense was terrible. Rutgers is not good. Wisconsin, not good offense. Nebraska's fine, but they have been leaning more on their defense than their offense. I still don't quite know what you have with the Michigan defense. This felt to me a lot like that Rutgers game, where, this is Nebraska is like rich man's Rutgers this year, where they have better talent around the field. Adrian Martinez is better than Noah Vedral, which is why Noah Vedral transferred from Nebraska to Rutgers. But you have better talent around the field. But, you watching the game, it was that same, the first half was that same, just like Michigan is happy to just grind this out and have this be 0-0 or 3-0, or, you go into half, 13-0 at half on Saturday night. They are perfectly happy to just play a, low scoring game, lean on the defense, just don't make a mistake on offense. There is going to be a point this season at which that no longer works. I don't know if that's against Michigan State. That feels like that could be against Michigan State in a few weeks. I don't think it's going to work at Penn State. I don't think it's going to work against Ohio State. You are not going to be able to score 13 points in the first half and have a lead on everybody. That's something that is going to catch up with you at some point. But so far they finished against rich man's Rutgers a lot better than they did against regular old Rutgers. So again, to them, that's a credit to them, because against Rutgers, they couldn't run the ball at all in the second half. And that's why it went from 20-0 to 20-13. And with Rutgers having the ball with a chance to drive to win the game, Nebraska had a chance to drive to win the game, and Rutgers took it away from second time. They've had a fumble on what seemed like it could be a game tying or game winning drive.
Yeah. So give credit to the Michigan defense for making that happen. Mm-hmm. Maybe next time an offense is in that position, just hang on to the ball and see what happens. You never know what's going to happen. Yes.
Yeah.
Just try it sometime and see how it goes. The Michigan defense held Nebraska to 140 yards rushing, 4.4 yards per carry. Adrian Martinez, the Nebraska quarterback, was 18 of 28 for 291 yards with 3 touchdowns. He was only sacked once. He did throw an interception. For me, I thought if he would have ran more, I would have liked Nebraska's options. The constant attacking of the middle, while in theory, we've talked about the defensive tackles and the defensive line of Michigan a lot. Just keep attacking them, pound it up the middle, see what happens. But there was nothing happening there. Nebraska was trying, and Michigan held up, and then Nebraska would go to some triple option. I think things would have been better if Martinez would have ran more, even though, yes, he probably would have fumbled more, but maybe one of those runs goes for 60 yards and is a touchdown, rather than, he's fighting for a first down on 3rd and 1 and somebody just slaps it out of his hands. And yes, he needs to be more careful, but I think it was a very good performance by a Michigan defense that answered a few questions for me in terms of what we just saw last week from Nebraska. Ran the ball really, really well. I think the Michigan held them in check in this one because I was thinking Nebraska spreading them out and running the ball, they would be able to do some things. And yeah, 4.4 yards, it's not great for your defense, but overall, I think Michigan, clearly they did enough to win the game. And it was some of the pass plays that allowed Nebraska to really stay in this. They had a 43-yarder, a 25-yarder, a 46-yarder, a 30-yarder, a 24-yarder, all from different receivers in that game. And so I like what the run defense did. They can still get better. Pass defense, we know, has been an issue. But, they made the plays at the end. Still, it's not, as you said, I'm not ready to call this Michigan defense one of the, I don't know, is it top half in the Big Ten? Probably, but is it good enough to keep Ohio State from scoring 31, 38? I don't think so.
Every week when we do this show, I always find that I'm more skeptical as we're talking about them than you really should be looking at the results on the field. But that's partly because we always frame the show around. So what does this mean for Ohio State?
Right.
Well, what this means for Ohio State is you haven't played a team with Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith and Jigba and Travion Henderson and CJ Stroud and Jeremy Ruckert. And, you haven't played a team with the speed on the back end of the defense that you haven't played Denzel Burke. You haven't played Ronnie Hickman this year. Like the challenge is about to get a lot steeper, and Michigan is they continue to just sort of scrape by a lot of these teams. Those teams generally, when the challenge gets a little tougher, those teams generally get caught. And, sometimes those are teams that get clobbered at some point later in the year. To your point about Nebraska running the ball, they lost. They were minus 0.32 points per play, expected points per play. Every time they ran the ball, they were plus 0.44 points per play. Now, some of that is you're leaning so heavily on the run that therefore Michigan is geared up to stop the run. So therefore they're more susceptible to the pass. But also, like, a better quarterback probably can take advantage of the secondary. I still don't think I feel better about Michigan's interior defensive line right now than I expected to coming into the season. That was one of the two big question marks we had for them. The other one is the defensive backfield. I still don't think we're halfway through the regular season. I still don't think that defensive backfield's actually been tested this year. They made some plays when they had to. Dax Hill had a fantastic interception. I think Ohio State had a guy who had an interception laying on his back at Nebraska a few years ago too, but Dax Hill had one, getting caught it laying on the ground. He's dynamite. I'm still not 100% bought in on the corners, especially like Hawkins. Hawkins had made some big plays last night. Brad Hawkins, the other safety. I'm not totally bought in on the corners yet. And I don't know when. I mean, maybe Penn State, maybe Michigan State can challenge them a little bit. If Peyton Thorne can get time and get the ball downfield, like maybe we'll see that. Wouldn't be the first time we've seen Michigan State throwing the ball in Michigan, am I right? But that you're going to either Michigan State or Penn State I feel like we're going to know a lot more once those have happened. But yeah, I still think I am still grading this Michigan defense a little bit incomplete. But I mean, I've been talking a while. Why don't you talk about Adrian Hutchinson? He continues to be pretty darn good.
I saw some Buckeye fans talking on Twitter about what's the big deal about Aiden Hutchinson.
I'm sorry. Sorry. Aiden, not Adrian. Sorry.
See, you're messing me up. But yeah, then if this is the only time you've seen him, then obviously you haven't seen enough because he has been all over the place all year long. And I do think he is a very good player. Is he a Bosa like his dad says? No, but nobody is. The fact that the best quarterback Michigan is going to face this year, maybe not even depending on how injured or healthy Sean Clifford is, leading up to the final two games against Maryland and Ohio State, the best quarterback they're going to face is probably Peyton Thorne. And we only know how good he is based on the teams he has played to this point as well. So you've got information, but it's still clouded in mystery because you don't really they're not really playing the toughest schedule. And so can Peyton, Thorne, and Michigan State's receivers have success against this Michigan defense? Yes, I absolutely think so. If they don't, does that mean Ohio State can't? No, absolutely not. And when we talked about this on yesterday's weekend recap show, I'm rooting like heck for Michigan State this weekend to beat Indiana, then rooting like heck the weekend after that for Michigan to beat Northwestern, so that these two teams will come in at 7-0. We'll learn more about both of them, but also these two teams are still flawed enough, even though they're undefeated, to be like, well, what have we learned when they're beating teams that have certainly some issues? And Michigan fans, I know they may not like hearing about it, but there are issues throughout the defense. I think the linebackers are playing pretty well right now. Defensive line continues to get better, but it's all thin. The secondary hasn't been tested. Jamon Green had a tremendous play when he came up and blew up a quick hitch out wide, maybe his best play as a Wolverine, recognized it. Vincent Gray has been playing well, but they should be, because they're almost playing a level down right now. It's like they're back on JV with the schedule at the moment.
Right. And I think that's true to some degree of all 5 of the Big Ten teams that are in the top 10 right now, or the top 9 right now. All of these teams are undefeated or have one loss because they, for the most part, haven't played each other yet. The 4 Big Ten East teams that are in the top 9 of the schedule of the rankings, it's like 6, 7, 8, 9 is all 4 Big Ten East teams. None of them have played each other yet. So that's one of the ways you get up there is you just keep winning games because you're not playing each other. And this is the old SEC, the SEC model as well. Look at how many top 10 teams we beat. Like, well, why were they top 10 teams? Maybe they aren't that good. Well, but they were top 10 teams because they kept winning early in the year. I don't think the Big Ten did this intentionally, but it has worked out for this to look like a phenomenal year for the Big Ten. And I do think there's some legitimate teams in there. This is a weird year of college football where outside of Georgia, a week ago we were saying Georgia and Alabama. Now we're just saying Georgia. Outside of Georgia, like, you could make an argument for pretty much any of the Big Ten East teams. Not Penn State now, but you could make an argument for any of them being top 2, top 3, top 4 in the country. It just kind of depends on how you want to stack them. But I feel like every show we keep grading Michigan incomplete. Like, well, it was good, but it wasn't great. Like, I still haven't seen what I really want to see. Like, if they were just killing these teams, if they did to Nebraska what Ohio State did to Maryland, that would have told me something. Yeah, you went on the road. Yes, it was a good win. Yes, you had to deal with some adversity for the first time, and you didn't fold like some Michigan teams have done in the past. So like that's all meaningful to me. But I want to see it against a better opponent. And Michigan State feels like it's going to be that opportunity because they've got a bye week and then they got Northwestern, which is kind of a second bye week. So, but go on the road to East Lansing. That should be a fantastic, fantastic game. I'm guessing that's a big noon kickoff game that day because I think Ohio State, Penn State is probably going to be the primetime ABC or ESPN game. But yeah, that is going to be, I think, when we really have a sense for what this Michigan team really is. But right now they're 6-0. Did you realize they were? I think I saw a stat on Twitter on Saturday night, and I'll try and pull it up right now. But this is like the 5th time they've been 6-0 in the last like 40 years. Michigan.
How many national championships did they win out of those 6 times?
Half of one. Let's see. Michigan teams to start 6-0 in the last 40 years. And this is from @Zach Shaw, who's a Michigan beat writer for 247. 1986, which is the Harbaugh. They won the Big Ten that year. That was the year he said, Ohio State aim is too loud. And the ref said, okay. 1997, they won the national championship. 2006, they went to Ohio State aim. It was also loud. Didn't go so well. 2011, that was the year Brady Hoke was going to turn the Urban Meyer era into the 10-year War II. 2016, another loud Ohio Stadium, and 2021. So, that's 6 times in the last 40 years. If you had made me guess, I would have said double that number. 6 times in the last 40 years feels like Michigan State's had enough good teams that, like, I bet Michigan State's done it like 4 or 5 times. You would have thought Michigan was I would have said 10 out of the last 4. I mean, 6-0 is not that crazy high. That's not, you're only halfway through the season. So I would have expected a lot more than that.
I think that's probably also been impacted by the Notre Dame rivalry, played in the first 3 or 4 games there that I'm sure they have cost them some 6-0 seasons. But I also think it is absolutely correct that we grade Michigan incomplete, because Michigan is graded based on how they do against Ohio State. And that's how that's the purpose of this, the whole Michigan Monday ideal and what it means for the Buckeyes. And also, I think Michigan fans are the same way. If it's fine to do this against Michigan State and Penn State, but what they really want is to do it against Ohio State. And at this point, I haven't seen anything from the defense that tells me Ohio State's offense is in trouble. Now, Mozzie Smith stepping up. This is a couple of games in a row where he's noticeable. And for a Michigan defensive tackle, that's kind of new over the last few years. And Aiden Hutchinson had 6 tackles, maybe wasn't in the backfield on any of those tackles, but he's still an impact player. And so they've got some guys, and we all love Daxton Hill. Like, he is a legitimate player, but we don't know how good RJ Moten is at that other safety when he's playing. And Brad Hawkins has been susceptible to Ohio State over the years, as have Jamon Green and Vincent Gray and anybody else they want to put in there, DJ Turner. We are seeing more out of David Ojabo. He had the lone sack. He's been getting into the backfield quite a bit the last couple of weeks. That will need to continue. Ohio State has, I don't want to say the best pair of offensive tackles in the nation, because Thayer Munford is playing left guard. So I'm not going to give too much credit to DeJuan Jones at right tackle yet, but they are giving CJ Stroud a lot of time right now. And when he is pressured, he's feeling it. He's stepping up. He's finding guys downfield. And I just, when we talk about the Michigan defense, it's hard to ignore what the Ohio State offense is doing. And I guess that shouldn't be a slight to Michigan's defense, because I think Ohio State's offense scores against anybody.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State's offense is all of a sudden, the last 3 weeks, and again, the last 3 weeks have not been fantastic competition, but Akron 56 points, Rutgers 52, and then 66 against Maryland. Like, this looks like an Ohio State offense that has figured some stuff out. And CJ Stroud with the shoulder seemingly getting better every week. They should just be getting more and more comfortable, more and more in sync. And I think the thing that Ohio State brings, in addition to the talent level, which Michigan hasn't faced this year, Ohio State can beat you in a couple different ways. They're not just Nebraska, who's going to run, and then occasionally hit you with a pass. Like, Ohio State has had a 300-yard rushing game. Ohio State has had a 400-yard passing game this year. Like, how would you like to lose is sort of the Ryan Day model right now. Like, Maryland was like, we're not going to let Travion Henderson beat us. And Ryan Day said, okay. And then CJ Stroud threw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns and no interceptions. Like, I'm sure there are Michigan fans who are just going, these stupid jerks, why won't they just say our defense is good? It's like, well, deep down in your heart, look within yourself right now. Deep down in your heart, look at Jamon Green and Gray and Turner and all those corners, and they're lined up across the field from Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like, really, at that moment, how are you feeling? How confident are you that this is going to go great? This is going to be fine. We're going to hold Ohio State to 20 points. Like, I don't think you're probably there yet. And maybe you'll get there, but I haven't seen enough to feel like, yes, that really is a possibility yet. That really is at least a somewhat likely outcome.
I wrote about the Ohio State offensive balance on Sunday. The Buckeyes have had 5 career 1,000-yard receivers in school history. Right now, they're on pace for 3 this year alone, provided Jackson Smith and Jigba takes his 75.3 yards per game average up to 76.9 yards per game. And that's only over a 13-game schedule. The way they are going right now with the passing game, we saw it against Maryland. The Terps set out to stop the run. They did a good job of that in the first half. So Ohio State throws for 400 yards. Tulsa, they set out to stop the pass. They did a good job of that. Ohio State runs for, 300 and some yards, with 270 of those yards going to Travion Henderson. And you look what the Buckeyes are doing. They're number one in the Power 5 in yards per play. They are third in yards per attempt in pass nationally. They are like maybe third or so, and yards per carry. So whatever you want, like they're equally as good running the ball and throwing the ball. That doesn't mean they're 50-50. It just means whenever they need something, if you want to take something away, that's fine. They're more than happy to throw the ball from the 2-yard line with a goal to go situation. And they're really effective wherever they are at whatever they want to do.
Well, and I think the challenge that poses for Michigan then is you can take one thing away, and Michigan's defense is good enough that maybe they can take one thing away, but you have to take two things away. And if you can't take two things away, and I don't think that Michigan can, I think they can do, a better version of what Maryland did, maybe really shut down the run, or shut down the run to a certain degree, but also limit the pass to some degree. You're not going to be able to do that enough to, hold Ohio State to 17 points, 20 points, something like that. So then your offense has to be able to win a shootout. And I don't have a tremendous amount of faith that Michigan's offense can win a shootout. Can Michigan hold Ohio State? What's your level of confidence right now that Michigan holds Ohio State to 35 points or under?
I don't see them holding Ohio State to less than 31. Mm-hmm. Like I don't even know. So I would say, I'm a little less confident in 35 than 31, mm-hmm. but for me, 31 is almost the baseline. And now you've got to score at least, mm-hmm. You've got to score 34 basically, or whatever to beat Ohio State. And what have we seen from this Michigan offense to think with an improving Ohio State defense? And I guess we should say the same caveats, like against two, but playing against mm-hmm. Maryland, they have a decent offense, but Michigan's offense is going up as well. I think they're having a nice trajectory, but I still need to see way more mm-hmm. and better execution from both sides, running game and the passing game, because right now it's not there for either of the running or the passing, even though it's effective enough, but you're going to have to increase that execution.
Yeah. And, one of the things that I always try and look for are common data points. And right now there's one, and that is Rutgers between these two teams. And Michigan got them at home, and it was 20-13. And the week after that, Ohio State had to go on the road, and it was 1,000,000,000,000. Like it was, whether than 52-13 or something like that. And it was not as close as the score indicated. That was, that to me was kind of the big flashing sign, warning, danger, Will Robinson for Michigan, where, they beat Rutgers by 7. They beat Wisconsin 38-17 in a game that wasn't quite really that lopsided. It was a little closer than that. And then 32-29 against Nebraska. And you're not killing teams right now. And you're playing teams that, if you are, legitimately a college football playoff team, you should be killing at least some of these teams. And you're not. And, Wisconsin, again, 38-17 at Madison. If you told me that before the season, I would have fallen out of my chair. But I think we have had the Wisconsin experience reframed a little bit since the beginning of the season, where that doesn't mean quite as much as it did at the start of the year. So yeah, I'm every week at this point, just the Michigan game is the one I'm like most interested to watch outside of like maybe the major national games. I told my son on Saturday night, like, no, we're not watching Alabama, Texas A&M. I don't care about that game. Alabama's going to kill them. I want to watch Michigan. I want to see what Michigan does, because this is a challenge, a time when maybe we're going to learn something about them. And we did, and it was good for Michigan to a point, but it's still like, yeah, I'm still not totally sold. And now there's a bye week, and then they play Northwestern, which is, you're not going to learn anything. And then things get interesting.
The next common data point will be November 6th, when Michigan plays Indiana. Ohio State will have played them a week or 2 weeks earlier. And so that will give us some more reference, but ultimately
Ohio State plays at Nebraska that week too. So that'll be another one.
Yeah, there you go. But ultimately, the major reference point will be in Ann Arbor, November 27th. where we will be proven right or we will be proven wrong, or maybe we just won't admit if we have been proven wrong. Is that?
I mean, I don't know if I'm grading them incomplete. I don't know how it could be possibly proven wrong. I think I've discovered a loophole here.
Right after the game, if Michigan wins, we'll be like, we grade them complete. Anything else from the show from the game before we get out of here?
No, just I mean, this has just been a really, really fun season in the Big Ten, and I'm like legitimately intrigued. The Big Ten the last couple of years, like if you're an Ohio State fan, like, yeah, it's been real fun to watch your team stomp everyone in the, just into a little, blood streak on the pavement. But just the Big Ten feels like it is much deeper and much better than it has been in a few years, which is, it's fun. Like there are a lot of big games in the Big Ten this year coming up, and I am like really looking forward to it.
Yeah. And it's nice to do these shows when you're covering a Michigan team that is doing well. And that gives us more to talk about next week during a bye week, as opposed to a 2-4 Michigan. Like, well, what do we talk about? Just revisit the hits? No. Maybe we do like we revisit a tale of the tape, and not even revisit, but just reassess it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe do something like that, but we'll get it figured out. We'll have another Michigan Monday episode for you guys next week. So that will do it from here. Thank you all for tuning in. As always, you can check out BuckeyeScoop.com, find us there, become a member, find us on the Ask the Insiders message board. If you are already a member, go ahead and hit us up. You can just add us and we'll be there. So that is there. Also, all of our videos, YouTube's, podcasts, live streams can be found at youtube.com/BuckeyeScoop, and just subscribe. You'll be notified whenever we drop a new video, and you won't have to come looking for us. We will come looking for you. So thank you for that, and we will talk to you later.